Right, let's just take a look at the materials that we're going to be using. We've got two clay shapers here with rubber tips for the masking fluid, but I also have a masking fluid brush as well. It's one very like this, an S.A.A. masking fluid brush. We've got this small soft hair round number 3, a large Pro Art oval mop, and two graduate brushes, watercolour brushes 8 and 4. Pencil rubber, some S.A.A. blue masking fluid, I prefer the blue, I can see where it's going, pot of water, and a little tray of paints here. And I'll tell you what colours we've got. We've got the S.A.A. paints in Prussian blue, in indigo, French ultramarine, and we've also got, if you want to use it, the non-granulating ultramarine, which we're not going to be using that one now. I just have it here to show you and test it. We've got the lemon yellow, we've got the intense violet, we've got the Scarlet Lake, we've got the Aureoline yellow, we've got Hooker's green, we've got turquoise, we've got Quinacridone Magenta, we've got alizarin crimson, and finally, just to show the difference, I've got a Winsor & Newton French ultramarine to show you here as well. To clean that palette up, a little mixing palette like this is just fine for what we want. All my colours are along here, and here, and here, and here. Let's just clean that now, ready for next use. The paper we're using on this particular painting, number 2, is the S.A.A. practice paper, and it's a knot paper. What you've just seen me doing is we've completed the teapot, as with the first one and the last one, by using our verticals and horizontals and our construction lines. Then I've gone on to just the basic shapes of the flowers. I want to mask the main flowers. I'm going to mask the white bits on the teapot and the lightest parts of the flowers and shapes of petals. So to do that, simplest way of drawing rounded flowers like daisies and so on in perspective is to make the oval first, the ellipse first, and then fill it with the petals, which will fit in between, within the ellipse. Much easier that way, and you can get the right scale and size of petal, because they'll be already foreshortened form if they're going to the centre. So we find the centre of the petal, we just bring these petals out from the centre, and they'll already be in foreshortened form. So for instance, this one here, centre's there, it comes out like this, petals are there, and then the ones that come towards us are very, very close, like this. This one up here is going at that angle, across, so we want the petal coming up and out like that, then two more coming down and out. They can come just over or just within the ellipse, it's up to you. They can go just over or come just within the foreshortened form of the ellipse. But I do want these to be more carefully drawn and more carefully painted. So we're going to have both the loose wet into wet and the tighter painting in this particular one before we go on to the very detailed one at the third stage. And then the rest are fairly loose there, we don't have to draw those in detail. This one down here wants drawing in more detail, centre's here, so the petal comes out from there, down to here, here, out to here, and then another folded one just going up into there. So you see how we can use these ellipses to find the shapes of our petals and keep them within those angles as well, because each of these ellipses is at an angle. And there we go, you can see how we can use the ellipses now and circles to work our flowers within them to get the correct proportions and shapes. The centre of that one is here, so it's a shorter petal this side and a longer one here. So I'm not doing all of them in detail, just some of them. I've just chosen the ones within the circles that I want. That should be enough for me. Shouldn't need more than that in detail. So we're ready to go on painting from here. but we've got a bit more detail in some of the background spaces, and we're going to use a combination of the first one and masking fluid on some of this, and wet onto dry to get hard edges, wet next to wet, wet into wet, lost and found edges again, rough against smooth, light against dark, warm against cool. All of those different things going on in this watercolour now, the second session. Next thing I'm going to do is apply my masking fluid, which is the S.A.A. masking fluid here, with the Clay Shapers Aura brush. And I'm going to start with my wedge-shaped clay shaper, and that's got a nice point to it for doing some of the finer lines, and I'm going to go down to my masking brush for the petals. So I dip this into here, should be able to get these nice fine lines that I want for the stems, just catching the light here. So I'm going to need to get that right, just so I know where things are. And these fine lines coming down here, which will give interesting effects, just a hint of the flower stems coming up. I want to go down to my masking brush in a minute. Let's just use this around these fine areas here. See, it takes the fluid very well, and this will stay white because the masking fluid, which is a liquid latex, will now dry, and it will stay there until I finish and need to rub it off, which will then come back to the white paper again. I'm going to do a little bit down here too, because I want a very sharp edge on this reflection here. Some of them are going to be softer, some of them are going to be sharper. This one's going to be a little bit softer. And I can do quite large areas, you see, with the flat of this tool, so it's a very useful tool, this clay shaper. The other small areas that need doing, here for instance. These are the harder edge ones, because whenever I put masking fluid and it comes off later, it's going to be a sharper edged white mark. So wherever I want sharper edges, I need to come now to the flowers themselves, so I'm going to change across. The clay shapers clean very easily because the masking fluid just peels off and look as easy as this. There we are, clean. I'm going to use a proper masking fluid brush now. This one, which is an S.A.A. masking brush. You just see the letter on there. And I want to use that because I'm going to do the petals with this one. And it'd be much easier to use a rounded brush for the petals, because I can just do the petal shape straight off. Don't need to do all of it for you really, it's just to give you an idea, because each one is a different stage. We'll be using this same technique in the final one as well, with as much detail, if not more, because it's a bigger painting. It's a half imperial painting. This is about a quarter. So these will be white areas of paper when the masking fluid comes off that I will tint down. They won't stay white. Some might almost, but most of them will just be tinted down. And as you can see, the brush is much easier to use on. I'll be able to paint over this masking fluid, which will paint the background dark, and these will stay light. Some of these areas need to be light as well. Just about done. It's all dark in there. Lighter just here. There's not. And that will do our masking. You can see now why I chose blue masking fluid, because you can see where it is. Right, I'm going to start then, and we'll do the pot first. I'm going to be fairly careful with the pot. I've cleaned up my palette, ready for nice clean colours. So we'll make a start. I'm going to use my large oval mop to start off with, just like I did in the first painting. And we'll start off with the lemon yellow as before. It's the pot I'm going to do first. Just sort of touch the watercolours to get them going. So I want a very light coat first of lemon yellow here. I'm going to paint them separately without masking fluid over the rest. Yellow going first and drop wet into that. So I want most of this to be the lemon yellow to start off with, and I'll make it a bit stronger in a minute. Nice things about these oval mops is you can turn them into a blade. You can turn them sideways and paint thinly, or you can continue thickly. Right down here, all the way down onto there. I want it all wet at the moment, right down into here. I can paint across the masking fluid, look. Nice big bold strokes. And that's called a wash. It's one colour. It's not graduated or changing, but I will now add a bit more colour to it. We'll start to add a bit more lemon yellow, a bit stronger, so I've just made a little bit more pigment into the paint. I'm now adding that, and while it's still wet I'm going to come back in with my warmer colours as well. I want to go with some blues and cools in there in a minute. Stronger up here. If I allowed this paint to dry and then went over it again with the same coat, it would be twice the darkness or twice the thickness. At the moment I'm just going into the already wet paint, so it's not changing it a lot. This is a cool yellow, being lemon yellow. It's more blue yellow than the Aureoline that we have from the S.A.A. anyway, because I found Aureoline to be much more lemon in other paints, but it doesn't matter. It's horses for courses, it's just how we'll use it. Right, talking about Aureoline, I'm now going to go to the Aureoline, and it's a much warmer yellow, and we'll just bring that around here, letting it spread into the much lighter lemon yellow, much warmer down this bit. Don't want to go over, I don't want to go into the background paper if I can help it. Warmer. Look at the differences in the photograph very carefully, because at this stage I really want to see these subtle differences that are going on here. Some very subtle differences of warm to cool, which I want to pick up on very carefully with this. It's quite orange down there. It's around here and it's quite orange. And it's quite strong orange coming down here, with some spots of yellow lying in between. And it's quite orange up into here, across there. I'm not covering it all evenly because I want these light reflections to show. It's quite strong in yellow just around here. I might even put a little bit of the red into that, our bright red. There we go, we've got that right up to there. It's coming in here now, a little bit of the red. Just a little bit to let drip, to let go wet into the edge of the pot here. So this painting is a lot more careful than the previous one, which we did very, very quickly as a study. We let it just bleed into here in places, especially down this bit here. I want to keep this wet. I don't want to drop these colours in whilst it's still wet. Down that bit there. Now while that's still wet, I'm going to take a bit of the very light turquoise, so I'll make it quite thin because I want to get a greeny tint coming around here, right around this bit here. Let that just join in with that. This blue that comes around all over the yellow there. right down through here, and even goes a little bit purple in a minute. We'll put some pink into this in just a moment. I just want to get this glaze, almost a glaze. It's just dropping wet into wet, like I say, so it's not quite a glaze. Right around here, there, all the way down here. Going to make it a bit stronger in a minute because I'm going to go bluer. Just letting this blend in. You see I'm letting it blend in, that edge is still wet, so I can blend in across it. Right down into there. A bit stronger now. Especially around here where it's a bit more green. Let it just flow down. I've got the paper at an angle so the paint can just flow downward slightly. All the way around there again. And the shadowed side here. The shadowed side of the handle here. It's a little bit warmer just up into here, so I'll make that a little bit warmer and darker. Now that's called a glaze because that is wet paint over dry paint. So you can see the difference in that now. The same colour coming down there. Now I want to go to a slightly stronger blue, so I take some of my Ultramarine and I want to drop that in down here in a moment. Let's just get these flowers going up, blending in, so we've got our lost and found edges going to happen there. Now back to the Ultramarine again, and especially here, just around this bit, the Ultramarine is a darker blue, French Ultramarine. Around here again, around the handle, a bit darker still. We'll just blend that in with the reds here. A bit. Let that reflection happen as it comes down through here. A bit stronger still, especially down here. You can see how we can get the round effects by the wet into wet gradually building up against the flowers, the shadows that are down here. Now, whilst I'm on that, I want to go to the deep purple, especially for the shadow just down on the bottom, starting here. And of course purple is the opposite, or deep violet. Purple is the opposite to yellow, so we're bound to get a wonderful singing of colour here. Let it blend all the way around here, down into here. And I want it to come into this colour as well here. I just want the edges to lose themselves into there a little bit before going any darker here. I need to do the blues in the flowers next here, so that turquoise a bit more down to the blue there. This is the turquoise again. I'm just making it a bit stronger down the bottom here, and I can do the rest by very, very soft, gentle blending. But I want to get some of that very light magenta going on in the warms, especially around here, which I haven't quite got that, so I do want that slightly warmer tint just coming in, especially down on these pieces here. So I'm just blending a little bit of magenta into those cool shapes down here now. You can see where I want hard edges and where I want softer edges of the reflections. But a lovely luminous, quiet. Now green, because we've got green reflecting from. I'm really pushing the colours this time. I really want to find these colours. Got green reflecting here from the undergrowth. Just letting it come into the really wet paint. Come back to the very deep purple and ultramarine down at the bottom here, to really just get the bend in that, a curve in that pot at the bottom. And just around here as well. If it's too wet, it's going to trickle all the way down the paper, so we've just got to time it. A lot of watercolour is to do with timing. Put it on too early and it just goes everywhere, like it's just trying to do here now. Or if it's too late, it's just a hard, dry line, which we don't really want. I just want this lovely luminosity of colour, which I've got now. Bringing that down into here. Of green into there too, just to get my darks as the lost and found edges here. Leave that alone, let that dry off. I could glaze over that later, you see, to give myself softer, as I can do even now here, a little bit. Softer shades. But that will do for the moment. We'll let that dry. I want this soft area going on. Now I want to move across to the flowers. And I'm going to start with the very light flowers, which will be again this turquoise, I've got a feeling. And they're going to be very pale. And there's also going to be some very, very light magenta and lemon yellow, so let's just try a bit of that mixture. I've already got my magenta mix there. It's quite light in the amongst the whites here. And I'm going to paint just wet into wet, blurry backgrounds here for the minute. Letting one colour go into another, where the bunches of flowers are blurred behind before I put the warmer colours in. All the way through there as well. All of those are quite a light turquoise before we go into the... Right, taking the ultramarine now, I'm just starting to work that into some of these lovely background shades. Wet into wet, light against dark, warm against cool, rough against smooth, constant reminder of our opposites. And it's difficult to tell because I've got the blue masking fluid on too, and that's going to be affecting quite a bit of the effects of these flowers into here. Just letting them blend one into another and just disappear here. So there's stronger bits of blue going on. You see how I'm using slightly thicker paint where I want a slightly stronger colour without going over again. Just dropping in this lovely French ultramarine where I need stronger blues. Just little tickles into the brush to get the effect of the petals. Quite a different way of working to the last one where we left masking fluid on the pot and we did a very slick background just using sponges as wet into wet. This time we're using the brush just to drop in petal shapes and let them spread out gently. While it's still wet I can still control this paint onto it here. And there are some lovely yellows going on into the leaves up in here as well, so I'm going to just take some of my lemon yellow and just add it now before dropping in darker greens. But if I put that yellow in with some of the blue I'm going to get green merging in anyway, because the yellow and the blue will make a green obviously. Let's just do that and bring those down. The background here. Right down through into here. Letting that blue mix with the green, with the yellow to make a green. I'll find some of those leaf shapes happening back in here. It will blend in. And we'll just get one tone blending into another gently here. Even down here we can afford to be just a little bit stronger with the yellow again, just to give a bit more reflection into the pot. Darken that down a little bit. Just want to soften that in like that, 2 strokes, just to get that. And we'll just lift out a fraction on the edge here. A bit more reflection just there. I'll just take a little bit out with the damp brush there. Anywhere else? Yes, maybe. Just a little bit out here. Lift that out with the damp brush. A little bit more reflection just there. The same over the top of the lid as well. I'm just coming down here. We'll take a little bit out of there. Quite subtly. Take a very light reflection. Just lifting out with the edge of the brush. Anywhere else? I think the other bits we've got are white anyway, so we've got the other bits. We could afford to lose a bit just there. There we go. Just wet it and then gradually take it away. Right, now I need to go in with much darker colours, so we want our deep greens and Prussians going on now. Let's have a look. I'll take some Prussian and a wee bit of purple and some green, and we'll come in around the teapot. Darker still than that, so maybe a wee bit of indigo in it as well. Let's see what we get with that. It needs to be darker than the teapot. In right round and linking in around here. I hope it's still wet there because I need to drop these darks in. Very, very wet. Against the wet that's already there because I want them just to blend. I haven't got to worry too much about that bit there because I've got masking fluid there. I'm just going to leave bits of leaf standing proud, bits of light in between, come right over into there. I want to put some lighter greens in just a moment. Got the darks in here, but we're going to need some more greeny greens against the darks here. So I've shown you 3 very different ways of working. By using masking fluid, by using different watercolour techniques. They're all very different techniques. That disappear into there. Just find these various darks that are happening up in between these beautiful flowers. And I'm just painting the darks in between the lights at the moment. These beautiful darks that are going in between these lights. I'll just let one colour blend, one tone blend into another. And the darks, the more we put in, will gradually bring the lights out. Put the lights out. Watercolour's nice like that. It's nice and fresh. I don't want to overwork it. To go back to my greens, I just want to have a nice bit of actual green coming into these bits with the yellows. Because there aren't any bright yellows here, in fact it's all this lovely green. This green just blend in down here. bit out of there, just lift it out where we don't want it. Blend it round. We're almost ready to let that dry, and then we can come on and take the masking fluid off in a moment. To let that dry now for the masking fluid to work in a minute. While I'm waiting for that, I'm just going to come back in with a bit more ultramarine in places. I want to get a bit more of that blue going in the shadows here. I'll do wet into wet effects. We can get these deeper, cooler blue flowers in the background here. Okay, we'll let that dry off and then we'll come back and do some tinting and tidying up. Should be able to find those flower petals then, and I can draw them more carefully with one of my smaller brushes. Right, we're now ready to take the masking fluid off, and you can see the difference we've got here with the flowers here and the masking fluid. When that comes off, we should be able to start seeing all of these flower shapes. Let's see what happens. We'll take the masking fluid off the teapot first of all, then off the top of the teapot, and all of these areas are to be tinted down, and off the reflections, and then finally off the flowers. We want to tint those right back, leaving some lighter ones. Next thing is to decide what colour we're going to tint, whether it's a pink or a deeper blue or a cool blue. We've got to decide. Sometimes we won't even use a colour from the dish at all, we'll just blend with water to soften it down, just to blend the surrounding colour. Any more for any more? Yes, a bit down here. That should be about it now, I think. You can feel with the cloth. There we go, that's ready now to... Oh, that's a bit of a nuisance. Now that's something you've got to watch out for. I knew the masking fluid was dry and I thought the paint was, but looking at this, look, I've got the paint that's just blobbed somewhere and has managed to smudge. Now what can we do about that? Oh, not going to be easy, but let's see if we can rectify it. It's just as well to have a problem to try and rectify it and show you. See if we can lift that off. There we go. Lift it off quickly without lifting the paint underneath, and we'll try the same with the purple. You can just soften it back in. That's right. So we can fix most things. Just blend that back down again and barely see it. Lift it out. Right, back to normal again. So we're ready now to start tinting these colours in. I'm going to go down to a slightly smaller brush. Go down to this one. And let's have a look at the photograph and see what we need to do. Let's start off with a turquoise. I don't think there's much cool stuff going on, but that one behind is cooler. There. Some of these are warmer, some of them are cooler, some of them are pinker as well. I'll take a very, very light magenta now. We'll just go across some of this with a little bit of the, and just water a touch of magenta, just to soften it back in. Same here, we'll bring those down from being pure white to having a slight blue tint to them. So at the moment we're just using some turquoise just to get these nice shadows going on. Need to lift that out a bit again, I've lost that little bit of handle there. I'm going to put this lighter blue on first, and then go back in with some of the ultramarine. And you can see now how I've left those flower shapes, those petals, there just to make it a bit lighter with the tinting. So I'm doing just a little bit of very light tinting here and there, just to bring out these. And our painting is again almost done. Now into those I want to have a little bit of the warmer colour, a little bit of the Ultramarine, because it'll play against these lovely cools. Our watercolour's almost there. Take a bit of the lemon yellow again. Just look at some of these lighter colours. On the pot, all I want to do is just gently, ever so gently, just soften in, just blend in. So I've got a lost and found edge, so I can just take that and soften that bit of paint at the edge, just bring it down so it's not quite as sharp. It just blends into there. Same here. Just soften that around there a bit. And the same down here. Bring that yellow around there just a little bit. Same there, it wants to be taken down just a bit. Too much white there. And our little watercolour is, I think, about there. A few more little bits of lemon yellow here and there to bring out the greens, just to balance it maybe. That's one of the beauties of lemon yellow, is it's slightly opaque, so we can paint it a little bit over the top if we want to. Now I would call that one done. I'm just going to put a little bit of mauve into the bottom corner here, just to make that a tad. And a wee bit of shadow here and there. Which I'll just soften back a little bit. We'll lose that edge there just a fraction by coming into it. Take a little bit of dark onto there and down here. And there we are with our lost and found edges here. Right, well that's the second of the 3 pieces done. This is more traditional watercolour, but we've used the masking fluid, we've used wet in wet, wet next to wet. We've used most of the techniques of it, even a little bit of glazing as well. So now on to the largest, most complicated one, because there's just so many textures going on. You can choose in between all 3 of them the styles and methods that you want to use in your painting and just explore and play with them.